Hey everyone, today I have my second book, and it is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And this is a self help book about, your life. Basically, covering the things that I cover in my coaching practice as well. But basically, instead of, talking about generally everything, this book is about four agreements. And now, what makes this book interesting is I am primarily a Buddhist thinker. I'm not interested in Buddhism, the religion, like the system of the afterlife and reincarnation as such. I'm not really interested in that, but the overarching philosophy of Buddhism that goes into the core essence of understanding the truth behind things. That I'm interested in, right? And so Buddhism tends to be a little abstract because we like to peel the layer around everything until we get to the core truth, right? And this book is basically like all other religions and like all other personal self-help kind of things. When you after you reach a certain level, they're all basically just talking about the same points, but presented in a different way. I like this one because it gives me a cultural perspective that I rarely get the chance to kind of indulge in, and that is the South America. This book is written by someone from that culture, and I, as an Asian person and I as an Asian American, it's kind of difficult for me to come um, across these cultural influences in a ordinary basis because I have my social surroundings are I'm a fairly isolated person, and like I don't really my life hasn't been conducive to many different cultures. I only have some kind of other cultural influences, but anyway, so that was seeing that, like, even the South Americans envisioned and dreamt of the same kind of core principles around life was very interesting. And now, again, instead of like talking about vague structures, this book proposes four agreements, and basically, these agreements are like commitments that you keep to yourself, or they're like mantras, or they're like prayers. Agreements is kind of an umbrella term that you name. I mean, when you say agreement, you have some sense of that word, how it manifests in your head, right? But, and for the purposes of this book, the agreement is with yourself. And whenever you have the term agreement in general is like whenever you operate under an assumption, you are operating under an agreement that your assumptions are correct, right? So if I eat food really fast, it's because I have an agreement with myself that the plate has to be empty as soon as possible. This is actually something that I used to think before, right? Because the purpose of eating is eating, and the purpose of eating is to complete eating. And so I want to get to that destination as fast as possible. So that was an agreement I made with myself. And now, when I look at the world and I see people who annoy me, then I have an agreement with myself that I am going to be angry at that person, right? The agreement is sort of this kind of underlying thought process that you have with yourself. That is agreement. And now this book is proposing, instead of your unconscious agreements, I want you to have four specific agreements. And four specific agreements we'll get to in a bit, but I want to talk a little bit about like the what I found my favorite part of the book, so to speak. So the book talks about a smoky mirror and the dream of the planet, right? And these are very natural metaphors, and I like them a lot because, again, these are just angles I haven't considered these things from before. So, in Buddhism, we get the sense that we are impermanent, and at the same time, we are part of a ever changing universe, and we are just compositions of something that will eventually recompose later. And so, but the driving force behind all of that is still like existence, right? Like new existences come and form and then it dissipates, but then it always comes and forms this cycle, right? And this book covers the same concepts, but instead of packaging it like that, there's a concept that says basically everything is life. So existence and ceasing to exist is the Buddhist concept, and this book emphasizes on life. Every formation and every ceasing is a form of life, right? And in that life there is light. Light because, let me just read you the quick excerpt from this book. Everything is made of light, he said, and the space in between isn't empty. And he knew that everything that exists is one living being, and that light is the messenger of life because it is alive and contains all information. Then he realized that although he was made of stars, he was not those stars. So this book's metaphor is about constellations and stars, which are basically things that are very much beyond us. And it's these lights, and light reflects. So whenever we look at something, we're looking at a reflection of something. So this cell phone isn't really a cell phone, this book like conceptually argues. I'm looking at the reflection of light that comes from this cell phone, right? But this cell phone also is a reflection of like my perceptions and my idea of what is a cell phone. To a person who doesn't know what a cell phone is, this is just a rectangular object, right? So that kind of me looking at something and having an idea that is already in my head is what this book calls a mirror, right? When I look at this object, I'm seeing a reflection of what I consider to be a cell phone. And that mirror is clouded by my perception as of a mirror. Let's say I feel really bad about being on my cell phone all the time, right? Then I am not looking at this, but I'm casting a lot of my own thoughts around this cell phone, right? And perceptions around it, my ideas around it, is called the smoke. And that is the metaphor of the smoky mirror, which I thought was a very interesting metaphor that I haven't heard before. But now coming back to the arguments, agreements. The agreements are simple. Number one, be impeccable with your word. This is the most non-intuitive one, but as you read the book, you're gonna understand what the word impeccable means. And the second one is don't take anything personally. Third is don't make assumptions, and fourth is always do your best. So not a really big book, and easy to read, with 4 agreements that you really want to keep. And if you're new to self-help, I think this can be an excellent starting point. But now, one thing I feel is a shortcoming of a lot of self-help books is that these agreements are good, right? We get that. But it's hard to act on these things because we have a habit of not, thinking consciously. And while we may impart new habits of thinking consciously, these things are hard to keep in your life for a reason. Be positive. But how can you be positive when you always think that everything is working against you? This book doesn't really cover that, right? It talks a little bit about that, and don't take it personally. But fundamentally, I think for your perception to shift and to actually accept these, you need a little bit of an entry work into how to come to terms with all the negative stuff that's happening in your life. And when you come to understand that all these things that make it difficult for me to be positive are addressed, I know what to do with that. That's when you can really get into action with these 4 agreements. But as an entry point, can it work? I guess. But will it do the job really well for everybody? It's up to you and how far you are in your journey with your mind. So with that, if you're interested in checking this book out and reading more into detail about what the 4 agreements are, again, the book is called The 4 Agreements, and it's by Don Miguel Ruiz. See you in the next one.